Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Catholic ReCon, testimonies from reverts and converts. I'm your host, Eddie Trask. This week's guest is Eliane Magee, who is a convert to the Catholic faith. And Elaine, I figure we'll start with you do some really cool things. What
Thanks.
what what do you enjoy? Or why don't you just tell the audience a little bit about what you do, kind of like the hobby, or maybe you would say it's more than a hobby, Eddie. But why
Hmm.
don't you tell us about what you do?
Well, I have a master's in public health nutrition from a long time ago and became a registered dietitian. And I knew all those years ago that I wasn't using my skills to be a clinical dietitian. I kind of did musical theater. I was a dancer. I speech competitions. So I had my idea that I was going to do radio, write books, all kinds of things in the realm of nutrition and health. And by golly, I did that, Eddie. And it was kind of cutting edge at the time. I created most of the jobs that I've had in my life. One of my favorite ones was WebMD. I was their first nutrition expert writer, pitched myself to them, Atlanta, Georgia, was able to do it remotely way back when I'm raising my kids. So thankful for that. Um, and I've been working at Stanford University. I was their wellness performance dietitian, developed their performance dieting program, worked with their athletes. Christian McCaffrey, just dropping a name.
Yeah.
One of my favorites, just so you
Yep.
know, one of my favorites. And then came to Idaho 9.5 years ago for the job that I have here. So, working for a grocery store chain, but
Beautiful.
did radio, all kinds of stuff. So I love health is my passion. It makes me cry just thinking about it. Helping people feel healthy, feel good, and just have great energy, sleep well. All that is just kind of how I've led my career.
That's great. And you mentioned something right before we started recording about maybe some menus that you've done for
Oh,
related to Lent.
yes. So my Instagram, which is at the recipe doctor, all spelled out lowercase. There's also a Facebook. If people are on Facebook, that my Instagram feeds, right? That is the same, the recipe doctor. I just post every day, sort of finding the happy place between delicious, healthy, and easy. That's my motto. So during Lent, I do, and actually throughout the year, I tend to post meatless, pescatarian types of recipes that are delicious, healthy, and easy. Either Thursday night, thinking about Friday, or I'll post it on Friday morning. But follow if you do. Turn on your notifications, and you can see some of my Lenten recipes.
Excellent. And I'm sure we'll get more into it even later. So as it relates to the faith walk, where does that all begin?
Oh my goodness. Well, I was I always had a faith, always had a belief in God and Jesus. I was baptized in a Baptist church, I want to say, in California by my mother. My dad really didn't have a faith. He wanted to, but because of his life, he grew up in Indonesia. He was in the Dutch resistance in World War II, was taken prisoner by Germans. I could go on and on. Had to go back and fight in Indonesia after World War II. So he wanted to, but I think he just wanted evidence, like pure and simple in front of him evidence. So we would bring him to church on holidays, right? And he was, just one of the kindest souls. Sorry,
No.
just one of the kindest humans. So I know he believed. It's somewhere in his soul. But anyway, was Presbyterian for most of my childhood, and even went to a Presbyterian church, through graduate school. And when I met my husband, who was raised Catholic, he was already divorced, very short marriage, but it happened to be in a Catholic church. So, and he never really got it annulled. And so he just kind of joined me, and we were Presbyterian, and we baptized our two adorable daughters who are now 31 and 33.
Do,
Um,
Elaine, do you mind if I ask where was this? And was this in Northern California?
yeah, the Bay Area.
Was
That's
it
where it
like
was.
was it Menlo Park Press?
No, it was St. Andrew's Presbyterian.
St.
It's
Andrews,
in Pleasant Hill,
Pleasant
California.
Hill.
That's where
Okay,
we,
sorry, I just
yeah,
had to ask. I
sorry.
had
Oh
to
my
ask.
gosh.
There have been a lot of
Uh,
connections to Menlo Park
how
Presbyterian. So
funny.
yeah,
Well, that's where we like raised our kids, and we were close with our minister. And, I was just digging this up. I even wrote a book, Bible Lessons in the Kitchen.
there we go.
Um,
Yep.
it was published in 1997. I think my oldest daughter was in third grade. And I did that with the Sunday school kids. So, I mean, we were very involved. And I can't, it was a long time ago. So I just remember us feeling like something wasn't right. Like everything was there, right, on paper, but we just thought, I don't know. So we decided to go church shopping. We went to Christ the King in Pleasant Hill. We knew a lot of people that went to the Catholic Church there. Um, and we never left, Eddie. We literally went. The place was packed. It wasn't like we felt, I mean, it was packed, but we just felt something there. And so we stayed. And then I went through, the girls went through First Communion. Dennis started the process on his annulment, which, by the way, was, I think, very healing, that process. And then I went through they called it RCIA class and converted. And so the girls were like, 7 and 9, right around there. We ended up renewing our vows, maybe 10 years after that, private ceremony with our priest. Yeah. So, but I would say that was, right, step one into Catholicism. And it definitely felt right. In preparation for talking with you, I literally wrote down like 5 confirmations that I'm in the best faith home for me. But I would say that 9.5 years ago, when we moved to Idaho, I feel like I think my husband would say the same. Both of us would say our faith took another big leap coming here. And I'm asking myself why. Part of it's Idaho. We just love the heck out of this place. But I think the priests, the church, the discipline, it's kind of like the holy day of obligation. They were called holy days of opportunities, where we came from. So I just think expectations are different. I feel like, I don't know, just the culture. So it's a journey, Eddie. So I looked, right now we're doing Bible lessons in a year, is, kicked off with Lent. After that, I'm going to do catechism in a year, but we're involved in the marriage enrichment with St. John's Cathedral. So like it's a journey, but I feel like coming here, both of us took another deep dive.
That's incredible. Yeah, and I want to hear about all those confirmations. One thing is, can you go back to right before you entered the Catholic Church in Pleasant Hill? I may have missed it. What was it? What was it? It was packed. So you coming from a Presbyterian background, it just felt
Right,
like
right.
home that first
It
time. or
it
what?
it did, and that's what was ironic, Eddie. I mean, this is what I remember in my head. It was the it was the probably the biggest church we'd been to in terms of just people, and yet it felt like home to me, like my soul, right? So I'm somebody who is all about feelings, which I know sometimes can maybe lead you in a different way, but I'm pretty, I think, intuitive. And I mean, when we were house shopping, there'd be houses I would walk into and walk right out, right? Right? Like, nope, doesn't feel right. So this was one of those where you walked in and it felt right. And even though it meant work, right? We all stopped communion, obviously. And we were used to, the one communion a month, first week, Sunday of the month, grape juice and Hawaiian bread, right? That's what we were used to. So it was a reset for all of us. And, sort of earning your way back and having it be the Eucharist, right? Which is such a big piece of my faith and my life.
Well, and one of the, I guess, things that people will say to negate that, if I may, is earn. What do you mean? How does that connect to the Blessed Sacrament?
Yeah.
how would you respond to that? Because I thought that was very intentional that you said that, and
Yeah.
approaching worthily is how I would say it is, because that's how the scriptures say it. But go ahead.
To understand what what it means, right? And to be right, to be whole in your faith so that you can rightly receive the Eucharist. If it's just Hawaiian bread and grape juice, that's, you know what I mean? Like it's not that. And for my husband, it was, the annulment and understanding and going through all of that to be right with the church in his way. Um, so we each had a different journey, to be honest, and we all came together and had communion together. It was amazing, just amazing.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it resonates with me. The feeling, as you said, and the emotion that is certainly not bad, especially if you have such a strong, what appears to be, I'm not one to name gifts, but my goodness, if you have, it seems like you have a really strong sense of discernment and to know something's not right, something is right, something feels incredible. And then
Mm.
what I love about your story is that it's simple and yet it's not. So, for example, how you step into the church, it's like easy. But then the process, of course, how we're always working on our conversion through
Always.
God's grace, always, every
Mhm.
single day, right? So there's a simple component, and then there's a more, human complexity. That's how God works with us, and He obviously knows us very well. So thank you for letting me ask those questions. So, as it relates to the confirmations, maybe we can get into a few of those that you
Oh,
were talking about. Yeah.
whew, yeah. Ju- I mean, as a child, I mean, I'm 63. I'll just put it all right out there. So this was a long time ago, but I remember like always having a connection with Mother Mary and angels, but Mother Mary. And, as a Catholic, obviously, right? But as a Presbyterian, right? Like it was, and my mom has passed, but I'm so thankful that she didn't ever like suppress that. She let me have this connection that nobody understood, you in the Presbyterian faith with Mother Mary, and just always thinking about angels, right? Too, but anyway, it all made sense when I became Catholic. Um, and she's my confirmation saint too. So I kind of think things went full circle for me. So I feel like that makes sense to me, right? And then as part of the RCIA class conversion, right, in California, we all were able to receive the communion during Easter. So I remember it was like they had one of our weeks, one of the activities we did, they had done the labyrinth. I don't know if you've seen that labyrinth, right, from the Middle Ages. And it was done in duct tape on a gym floor, right? So it's not like I'm in some kind of magical botanical garden, right? And so we're all, my class of people, we all were going through meditative, we prayed, we were ready, it was quiet, and we were all, when it was our turn doing it. And I'm just one of those people that when you say, hey, when you get to this one part, just be open to hearing God's message, like or whatever. I'm like all over stuff like that, right? Right. I'm like, okay, I'll be listening, but you go through it and you get to that part where it's kind of that center part. And I am not kidding you. Loud and clear, I hear three words. Elaine.
So what's so crazy? You cut out in the first word you just said. Was it welcome?
Welcome
Okay.
home, Elaine. Yeah.
Welcome home, Elaine.
Welcome. And I'll never forget it. And it's like,
Wow.
so it's like, confirmed. I knew I was in the right place, but that just confirmed it to me. Welcome home, Elaine. And my name was used, not just welcome home, but welcome home, Elaine. Yeah. So that's another one. This is not going to surprise you now that I've already cried a bunch, but I also always cry when I get the Eucharist. Always. Like it just sometime lately, because I think hopefully my faith has deepened even more, but lately just approaching the priest, ready to receive communion, even on the approach, and I'm looking up at that beautiful cross with Jesus on it at St. John's. I start tearing before I even receive the body of Christ. So, and it's all I can do. And I'm usually in the second pew. It's all I can do to get back to my pew on my knees, and the tears come. Yeah. So it's like I feel it. I feel it in my body, in my soul, each and every time.
Do you maybe you do recognize this, how much of a gift that is? Such a gift.
And this is the craziest thing. I never thought of it quite that way, right? But this is like 3 years ago. I'm in a plane flying back, I think from California, and I'm sitting next to this really nice woman, and we start talking, which tends to happen if you sit next to me in an airplane. And turns out she goes to St. John's Cathedral. I'm not kidding.
Of course she does. Yeah.
And she's lovely. And we're chatting, and we're chatting about just, how wonderful that cathedral is and our faith. And I mentioned that I cry every single time I have the Eucharist. She says, that's the gift of something. I don't even remember what she said, but that's like a special gift. So that was the first time, Eddie, that I thought of that as a gift. And every now and then I do have the blood of Christ. I tend to pass it up because I'm already crying pretty much, right? But when I do, I can literally feel it go through my body from like head to toe.
Another gift. Yeah.
And I with all due respect, I never felt that with in the Presbyterian Church communion, and
Sure.
I want to give people, I'm sure they feel something too, but for me and my faith home, this I feel.
Well, that is the power of transubstantiation.
I agree. And so also, just on that note, during COVID, right, where we were not attending church for a while, I actually got COVID early on, was in the hospital because I was slightly hypoxic, and just my age. They were, I think, trying to watch me through the inflammatory phase. And so even after that, right, months go by, Holy Apostles opens up communion or mass in the parking lot, and we go. And I'm not kidding you, just in the car, you're sitting there listening to the service, and then when there's the part of the Eucharist, and you get out of your car and get ready for somebody to come by, and I'm already just in anticipation, completely falling apart. And that's because we were separated from it for so long. And that's, again, you don't realize how important something is to you until you don't have it for a while. And so that was like, hello, this is beyond meaningful. So, and I think there's so many people that still, not Catholics necessarily, but people I know that still go to church remotely. And it's like, as a Catholic, gosh, it's just a participatory kind of
Sure.
mass, right?
Yeah.
Every time you and just the community around you saying the St. Michael's prayer out loud at the end of mass, like all of it is meaningful to me.
Yeah, I think maybe I'm off. I've heard this before, gift of tears. I don't know if that's what
probably
it is.
what she said. She probably
What she said. There have been a few people, probably more than a few. Yeah, over the years, I've heard the same thing where,
okay,
just as they approach the Holy Eucharist, it's beautiful. And I know a lot of people say, what a tremendous blessing. Go ahead.
even even that the part in the mass where you say, Father, I'm not worthy that you should enter under my roof, but only say the words and my soul should be healed. Even that. And I can't even, I mean, luckily I'm not this amazing singer, and I'm not in the choir or doing solos. I'm not at all. But luckily, because I can't sing certain beautiful songs, that because when I say Jesus, when I sing Jesus, I can't. I cry just at the way of saying his name, So, luckily, like I said, somebody's not waiting to hear me sing. but, but I even the name and the vision on the cross and pieces of the mass, right? It's as the older I get and the longer I'm in my Catholic faith, the more everything means.
And Elaine, right? I mean, when you are able to describe this the way you're describing it right now, I don't know if you thought about it, but the church needs lay people that can express themselves like this with real emotion, real experiences tied to the mass. I don't know what that means for you. I'm just saying it's a beautiful thing. It's amazing. I got to tell you, really, it hits me right in the heart. So I think a lot of other people will feel the exact same way.
And I tell people sometimes your most passionate Catholic is a former, Protestant. Sometimes your most passionate Idahoan is your former Californian. I just feel like we are, all on this journey,
We all help each other. Yeah. We all help each other.
And sometimes I think it's curious that my Protestant friends and family have never kind of asked me about my conversion or what it means to me or why. I don't really think they've asked. We were invited to a Bible study. This is 11 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, before we moved, by friends of ours, which were with another Protestant faith. And we were happy to be the only Catholics. We were like, okay, token Catholics. We may have made a joke about it, And about 3 months in, we realized when they invited us, my husband and I, separately to all women, all men kind of get together. That's when it hit us. Oh my gosh, they're trying to save us. We were like, wow, and it was shocking to us, right? Because we're just so confident and so comfortable in our Catholic faith that it was unexpected. So now when anybody invites us to a Bible study, we're really yeah, all right, but yeah, I just have, even in Idaho, lots of Protestant friends, so you do get a very interesting feeling for, I feel like it's sort of a critical eye sometimes.
Sure.
And what I try to do, though, Eddie, is break down that barrier and say, do you want to hear the Hail Mary? Do you want to know what this means? What this means? It means so much to me, right? I literally say to myself, please God, bring the scripture into my mind, into my words, and into my heart. it means something. Right? So, and it's like I've been doing this my whole life, Eddie. I feel like I literally fell into it like it was home.
Wow.
So anyway, happy to always share that story. And then lastly, one of the other quick things I was going to tell you that kind of made me feel like, yeah, I'm in the right place. This is my husband's an usher now, so I sit mostly alone for mass, but this was before he was an usher. We were sitting together in that second pew that I was telling you about. And the old stained glass window above, beautiful St. John's with the big dove, with the dove, right there.
The one that was replaced, the Holy Spirit. Yeah.
Yes. So it's before it was replaced. We go to 5:00 mass on Sunday. So, it was maybe before it was dark. Anyways, I think in the middle of the homily, we for whatever reason, We both were looking up at it at the same time, and we see a large bird on outside the stained glass window with his wings stretched, exactly mirroring the wings of the dove. And we looked at each other, and I'm not looking at that when Father Amon or somebody's giving their homily, right? But that moment, we both saw it, and we looked at each other and said, "Did you see that?" And we were like, "Oh my gosh," right? And I felt so moved by that when I heard it was being replaced, like when it occurred to me, I asked somebody, like, can I like pay for it? Can I buy it? I'll put it in my house somewhere, right? And they said, "Oh, it's already been, taken care of." And I was like, "Oh man, I would have put it somewhere." But we both had that experience together. And every time I see the new one, which is kind of similar, I think of that moment.
Incredible. I'm so glad that you thought through those confirmations.
Interesting though. So my family, right, obviously Protestant. When my father died, he was 12 years older than my mom. So I'm going to say it was like 20, maybe 4 years ago, and she died just a year ago. After he died, she had his wedding ring. She put a cross on the wedding ring, and there used to be a pearl, which was his birthstone right on there. Lost it in Pilates class, I think. Anyway, and she wore it for like a couple years and stuff. And then at one point, she gave like her wedding ring to my sister, her mom's wedding ring to my other sister, and she gave me my dad. She gave me this, and I'm telling you, it's one of my favorite possessions. This, and she gave it to me, interestingly enough, because in Holland, when she was growing up, it was the Catholics and only the Catholics that wore the cross.
Ah,
So I thought, hey, however I got this, I
yeah,
because
absolutely.
it's my dad is one of my favorite people ever in the
Oh,
world. So
beautiful.
he's I wear him with me. But yeah, so I thought, thank you, Mom. I'll wear his wedding ring and the cross.
So when you hear of those that are, I don't know how often this comes up for you, hear of those that are discerning, they're considering the Catholic faith. Do you talk about your story
Oh,
or
I'm obviously an oversharer, Eddie. So yes, happy to talk. I mean,
yeah,
I try to not be, forcing it, but if there's a door that opens, I'm going to walk through that. I hope that God puts me in places where I am able to share my story. And even if it's, 10 years later when they talk to somebody else and decide to, and obviously we would love for friends to come with us to mass and just show them. We've brought some of our friends to Stations of the Cross and some other things that we can share. So I feel like for me, there's I want to respect where they are just as I hope they respect where I am, because I've had come close sometimes to having to tell some friends, hey, I don't I don't, say negative things about your
yeah,
faith, your denomination or your faith. So please don't do that for me.
yeah.
I've come close sometimes. I just feel like, golly, we do seem to be a bit of a target for some. So,
Sure. And
but
go ahead, finish that
I
thought.
just say, but I just keep living my faith, right? And I keep walking that walk because it's deeper every day.
And I was going to say, we talk about apologetics often, and you see a lot of channels, very important, defense of the faith, obviously. But I think what I'm seeing with you, which is very strong, is just you being Elaine that has had a tremendous experience with the Lord. That becomes the apologetic, if you understand
Yeah,
what I'm saying. And
yeah,
and you're saying it with humility. I'm not saying like, "Oh, whoa, what a witness. You've arrived." You see what I'm saying, Elaine? Like
yeah,
we need to be able to tell people, walk as you are, continue with the sacraments, and that itself is a defense of the faith in a beautiful way.
I remember as a Protestant thinking, confession, for example, right? It's like, I can, I can direct dial,
Sure.
To God. And then I go through the RCIA class, and we're all having our, as a class, and these are grown men and women, right? Going to confession for the first time. And in that moment, I realized you confess the things that you've been holding on to. As many of the times you may have prayed to God about it, you confess the thing that just is you can't, it's holding on to you, right? And that's what you bring to the priest in that moment. And it is such a healing experience. I saw, grown men sob, fall to their knees and sob. So, it's real, it's real. And for me, my husband goes way more than I go. Not that he has more to confess than I do, but that's something that's another growth step where I'm trying to go more often to that as well, because I'm always happy I do it. I always come out feeling, whole and cleared. Right. So I can't quite explain it, but it's, and I love that there's different priests and that they all have a different style to it.
Yeah.
I'm just always sort of open to what comes. So anyway, and my husband would tell you too that it's kind of ironic that I brought him back to his Catholic faith, because I feel like he remembers that I was the driving force to us kind of, I think, converting and staying at Christ the King. I remember it being more of a group decision, but that's how he remembers it. But how cool is that, right? That I don't know whether me hearing his upbringing and just being around his mom, who went to that church before she passed, that made it sort of in my mind as an option, and then me bringing him there, I don't know, but we just, it's beautiful. 35 years married, by the way. So
and congratulations.
Thank you. And when we got married, just for one of those other examples where it wasn't a non-Catholic church because we weren't Catholic yet, but as I'm walking down the aisle, and in that moment, where you're literally, in this chapel, and you're walking, in that moment, I felt so strongly that I was sort of meant to be there in that moment, and that this was supposed to be, that I couldn't even say my vows out loud, or I would have cried. So I had to whisper my vows. But I knew in that moment I was meant to be there. It was, and now I kind of know why some people go the other direction. Because you can't, if you've been lying to yourself, I feel like there's this moment of clarity as you're, at least for me, as you're walking down in the with the cross in front of you. If you've been somehow lying to yourself, you're going to know potentially in that moment. And for me, it was this is where I'm supposed to be right now. So amazing. So anyway, just
amazing. One thing I wanted to cover is, do you often think about physical health and tying that to spiritual health? And maybe you can speak to that just briefly.
Yeah, that's probably a future deep dive for me. But yes, because I feel like if you're not feeling good, well, let's put it the other way. If you are feeling good, I feel like you're in a better place maybe to receive, but I also think sometimes when you're struggling physically is when you're I know for a fact when I was, going through COVID and was suddenly in a COVID floor in a hospital, not knowing what was going to happen next, or not necessarily, I wasn't struggling physically, but you were in this crazy, and everybody didn't know what was going to happen, with COVID. There was that whole I mean, I remember feeling God with me. I felt like my dad was with me. I just had a calmness and just I just surrender. You know, there's a place where you go where you just surrender. So, you know, surrender. And I was watching a lot of Hallmark movies when I was in, and I got to tell you, I I ended up like 2 months later bringing a whole bunch of cookies to that floor with a big note because I said, listen, I wanted to eat a cookie so badly because I kept watching Christmas Hallmark movies, and it's all about gingerbread and cookies. So I was like, do you have a cookie? Like I literally called up the cafeteria. Do you have a cookie? No, not really. Like, really? Because I'm watching Hallmark. Anyway, but I wanted to thank the staff. So I sent all these individually wrapped bakery
That's
cookies with a big
awesome.
note explaining that I watched Hallmark movies. But anyway, I do think that when you're outside, feeling the sun, feeling the grass under your feet, walking, like those are practices, prayer, right? Those are practices that I just think do help your body. And sometimes just even listening, like I was going through like a supplement H. pylori kind of cleanse, and it was making me feel really sick. And I remember going to church, I had communion, I was praying, and I hear again those words like, stop the supplements. It's really like, my body needed for me to stop it. That's what was making me sick. So I mean, I just feel like just being in touch. But for everyday people, just getting out and walking,
Yeah.
getting some sunlight, breathing the air. I feel like we've kind of lost touch with nature, especially the last 4 years.
Yeah.
But
Agreed. Agreed,
right,
Elaine. No,
but
good answer. Good
right,
answer.
and if you're
Yeah, I really appreciate
exercising and
that.
you're eating
Yeah.
well and you're sleeping well, all of right, all of that, I think it's all puzzle pieces.
Yeah. Yes, agreed. Okay. Elaine, anything else that we did not cover that you want the audience to know?
Goodness. Um, this is kind of another crazy little thing that happened to me. When I was like 7, we moved to this house in Concord, California, relatively new house. And I woke up at midnight, according to my mom too. She confirms this every night around the same time, and I would feel unsettled. I would go and sleep next to her on these thick, like shag rug, like next to her bed. And we were only in that house a couple years. And my mom did say there were unexplained noises in that house, right? We moved to Fremont. I'm in second grade, I want to say. The night we stopped sleep, we moved out of that house. I stopped waking up at midnight. Strange, right? So I don't know.
Just a
Hopefully this
little, yeah, little
guardian
strange.
angels. Yeah. See, and I feel like, see, that's another thing about Catholics. Like the angels are welcome, right? We pray, and I had an angel collection before I was Catholic in our old house, and because I just have a thing for it, an affinity. We moved here. There's no real place for it, so now I have an angel in every room. That's how I spread my angels out.
Spread your angels
But,
out. I love it.
but,
Uh,
I just feel like I was Catholic and I didn't even know it.
there you go. There you go. Well, Elaine, this was a joy. I think you are I hope that you'll have a chance to share your story and share the joy that you have more often. And thank you for what you do in the health community. Thank you for brightening this community. I can already tell. I can't wait to meet you in person. So,
Me too.
yeah.
And my husband and I are involved in, just getting some different marriage classes and
Oh, great.
events,
Yeah.
just support marriage, um, and help, tell our story. We do that with two other wonderful couples at St. John's. So that's kind of where we think we can be helpful.
Great.
Um, so anyway, I feel very blessed every day. I'm in Idaho, I should say I'm Catholic. B, I'm in Idaho. I just every single day so grateful. Literally wake up grateful. And crazy thing is, I accepted this job before I even stepped foot in Idaho. Like my husband had been here many, many, many times, not me. So I literally accept the job. I fly in a plane just to at least see before I let my other job go, the Stanford job. Can I live here? And it just immediately felt like home. And here's the other, you saw how much I cry all the time, right? When we drove away from the house that we raised our kids in, that we were there for 26 years, I look back and I think I didn't cry when we drove away. Like,
Of
what?
all the times to cry.
I didn't even cry. And
Wow.
I think I must have just been, so sure, or just so, I don't know. But that means something. And it did feel like home to us. So anyway, every day we're just grateful to be here.
Love it, Elaine. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing this. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And we'll
Everyone,
meet
please.
again.
Yes, we will. Everyone, please share the episode. Pray for everyone that you see on this show and those that are watching on YouTube and listening on podcast and anywhere else. Please keep praying and show mercy, patience, all those things to those that are asking questions. Until next time, take care and God bless. Bye.